Tonight's story isn't about a birthday dinner. It's about loyalty. It's about priorities. And it's about the moment a mother is forced to choose between family expectations and her child's life. My son was airlifted to trauma. Helicopters, sirens, doctors running, and while I was standing in a hospital hallway praying he would survive, my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law. "Missed the birthday dinner," she said, "and you're dead to us. Dead to us. Stay with me, because what happened next changed our family forever." If you believe a parent's place is beside their child, no matter what, hit subscribe and join this community where we tell the stories people are too afraid to say out loud. It was an ordinary day until it wasn't. One moment, everything felt routine, the kind of normal you never think twice about, and the next, the world tilted. The call came in fragments, words tripping over panic. There had been an accident. It was serious. They were calling for air transport. I remember the way my body reacted before my mind could fully process it. My hands went cold. My chest tightened. The air felt thinner, like I had to fight to breathe. When someone says your child's name in that tone, something primal awakens inside you. It's not fear at first. It's urgency. It's movement. It's the sudden understanding that nothing else in your life matters more than getting to them. By the time I reached the scene, the helicopter was already overhead, its blades slicing through the sky with a violence that matched the chaos on the ground. The sound was deafening. Paramedics moved quickly, efficiently, their faces focused in a way that told me this wasn't minor. They weren't panicking, but they weren't relaxed either. That in-between space, that controlled urgency, is terrifying to witness when it is your child lying on that stretcher. I caught a glimpse of him, so small against all the equipment surrounding him. Wires, straps, oxygen. His face looked pale in a way I had never seen before. Not sleeping. Not resting. Just fragile. Someone was speaking to me, explaining procedures, timelines, trauma, protocols. But their words sounded distant, like they were traveling through water before reaching my ears. "We're airlifting him to the trauma center." Trauma center, the words echoed. That's where they take the worst cases. That's where they fight for lives that hang in the balance. The helicopter lifted off in a storm of dust and wind, and I stood there watching it rise into the sky, carrying my entire world inside it. I have never felt so powerless. As a parent, you spend your life protecting your child from scraped knees, from nightmares, from heartbreak. You learn how to kiss away pain and offer comfort. But in that moment, there was nothing I could do. No hug could fix this. No reassurance could make it better. All I could do was follow. The drive to the hospital felt endless, though I don't remember the roads. I don't remember traffic lights. I don't remember how fast I was going. My mind replayed every memory of him. His first steps, the way he laughs when he thinks something is really funny, the sound of his voice calling for me. The human brain does strange things in crisis. It gathers every precious moment and holds it up like evidence, as if reminding you what's at stake. When I finally reached the trauma center, the pace didn't slow. Hospitals have their own rhythm, especially in emergency situations. Doors opened and closed rapidly. Staff moved with purpose. There were no wasted steps. No idle conversations. I gave his name at the desk, and the expression on the nurse's face shifted instantly to recognition. That look, the one that says, "Yes, we know exactly who you're here for," sent another wave of fear through me. They took him straight back. I wasn't allowed in at first. I was told to wait. Waiting is its own kind of torture. The chairs in those rooms are designed for function, not comfort. The lights are too bright. The clock ticks louder than it should. Every time a set of footsteps approached, my heart jumped into my throat. Every time they passed without stopping for me, the silence felt heavier. When the doctor finally came out, their expression was measured. Professional.com, but serious. They explained injuries, scans, possibilities, words like critical, monitoring, and we're doing everything we can drifted through the air. I nodded as if I understood everything perfectly, but all I truly understood was that my child was fighting. and I was standing on the sidelines praying for a miracle. Seeing him in the trauma bay was something I will never forget. Machines surrounded him, blinking and humming. There were more wires than I could count. His chest rose and fell in a rhythm that didn't feel entirely his own. I touched his hand carefully, afraid to disturb anything, and whispered that I was there. That he wasn't alone, that he needed to keep fighting. In that moment, the world outside those hospital walls ceased to exist. No obligations, no expectations, no social commitments. Just the steady beeping of monitors and the fragile hope that he would stabilize. Time lost meaning, minutes stretched into hours. My phone buzzed at some point, but it felt irrelevant, almost offensive. How could the outside world continue moving when mine had come to a halt? How could anything matter beyond the survival of the child lying in that bed? In those moments, you realize how quickly life can fracture. 1 second you're planning dinners, routines, and ordinary tasks. The next, you're bargaining silently with the universe, promising anything if only your child is spared. There's a clarity that comes with crisis. It strips away pretense. It reveals what is essential and what is noise. Sitting beside that hospital bed, listening to the machines breathe and measure and sustain, I understood something with absolute certainty. Everything else was secondary. Every tradition, every expectation, every obligation. None of it held weight against the fragile, sacred reality of my child's life. I was sitting in a stiff hospital chair, staring at the double doors that led to the trauma unit, when my phone started vibrating in my hand. I hadn't realized I was holding it so tightly until the buzzing startled me. My nerves were already stretched thin, my thoughts tangled between worst-case scenarios and desperate hope. Every sound in that hallway felt amplified. The squeak of rubber soles against tile, the distant beeping of monitors, the low murmur of medical staff speaking in quick, coded language. My heart was already racing, so when the screen lit up, I felt another jolt of panic. For a split second, I thought it might be a doctor calling with news I wasn't prepared to hear. Instead, it was her. My mother-in-law. I hesitated before answering. A part of me hoped, maybe irrationally, that she was calling because she'd heard what happened. Maybe someone had told her. Maybe she was worried. Maybe she was about to say, "We're on our way," or "How is he?" I clung to that tiny possibility because in moments like this, you look for any sign of support, any reminder that you're not completely alone. I answered, my voice barely steady. I didn't even have time to speak before she launched in, "Are you still coming tonight?" For a moment, I genuinely didn't understand the question. My mind was too consumed with 4 lines and CT scans and the sound of helicopter blades still echoing in my ears. "Coming," I repeated, trying to catch up. "My birthday dinner," she said, her tone already edged with irritation. "We have reservations. People are coming." The words felt surreal. I glanced down the hallway toward the trauma doors as if the reality behind them might somehow leak into this conversation and make it make sense. "He was airlifted," I said quietly. "We're at the hospital. It's serious." There was a pause, but not the kind I expected. Not shock, not concern. Just a sharp exhale. "So you're not coming?" The question landed heavier than it should have. I could feel my body shaking. From exhaustion, from fear, from the emotional overload of the day, and now from something else. Disbelief. "Of course we're not coming," I replied, my voice cracking despite my attempt to stay composed. "Our son is in trauma." Another pause, then the words that would replay in my head over and over. "If you miss this dinner, you're dead to us." Dead to us. In the middle of a hospital corridor where doctors were fighting to stabilize my child. I was being told that skipping a birthday dinner would erase us from the family. I pulled the phone away from my ear for a second, staring at the screen as if I had misheard. The fluorescent lights above me hummed softly, and somewhere nearby a nurse called out a patient's name. Life inside that building was fragile and urgent and real, and yet on the other end of that call, the priority was a reservation and a cake. I tried once more, my voice lower now. Strained. "He might need surgery," I said. "We don't even know what's happening yet." "Well," she replied coolly, "family shows up for family. The irony of that statement hit so hard it almost made me laugh. But there was nothing funny about it. I looked down at my hands, still trembling, and thought about what showing up actually meant. It meant sitting in uncomfortable chairs for hours. It meant signing consent forms with shaken fingers. It meant whispering reassurances into a room full of machines. It meant choosing your child without hesitation. But somehow, in her world, showing up meant dressing nicely and sitting at a restaurant table on schedule. Guilt tried to creep in, as it always had in the past. Years of subtle pressure and expectations had trained me to second-guess myself, to wonder if I was overreacting, to ask whether I could somehow manage both the hospital and the dinner. As if grief and crisis could be penciled around a social engagement. For half a second, I felt that familiar tug of obligation. The voice that said, "Maybe you can explain better. Maybe you can smooth this over." But then the trauma doors swung open briefly, and I caught sight of a nurse rushing past with a chart in hand. Reality snapped back into focus. My child was lying behind those doors. Nothing else competed with that. "I'm not coming," I said finally, more firmly this time. The silence on the other end felt icy. "Fine," she replied, "but don't expect us to forget this." The call ended without a single question about his condition. Not one, "Is he okay?" Not one, "What happened?" Just a line drawn in the sand over a missed celebration. I sat there for a long moment after the screen went dark, staring at my reflection in it. I felt a strange mix of emotions: anger, hurt, disbelief, layered on top of the fear that was already consuming me. In a moment when I desperately needed support, I had been handed an ultimatum instead. Around me, the hospital continued its steady rhythm. A volunteer pushed a cut of blankets down the hole. A couple across from me held hands tightly, their faces etched with the same worry I knew was written on mine. In that space, priorities were painfully clear. Life and death did not pause for convenience. Love did not measure itself in attendance records. My phone felt heavier in my hand after that call, not because of its weight, but because of what it represented. The outside world, with all its expectations and social obligations, felt disconnected from the gravity of where I was sitting. The contrast was almost dizzying. On one side, machines monitoring a fragile heartbeat. On the other, someone tallying who showed up for dinner. I slipped the phone into my bag and leaned forward, elbows on my knees, staring at the floor tiles as if they might steady me. The hallway smelled faintly of antiseptic. My heart still pounded in my chest, but now there was something else rising alongside the fear. A quiet, simmering realization. In the face of crises, people reveal who they are, and sometimes the call you receive while your world is falling apart tells you more about a relationship than years of polite gatherings ever could. The steady, rhythmic beep of the heart monitor was the only music in the room. It was a sound I'd come to know intimately over the last 3 days. A metronome counting out the seconds, minutes, and hours since our world had been turned upside down. My son, my 10-year-old boy, lay still in the hospital bed, a web of tubes and wires connecting him to the machines that were keeping him stable. His leg, encased in a bulky cast, was elevated on a stack of pillows. His face, usually so full of life and mischief, was pale and swollen, a small cut just above his eyebrow stitched closed. It was a bicycle accident. A simple, stupid bicycle accident that had spiraled into a nightmare of fractures, a concussion, and a trip to the trauma unit. I sat in the stiff, uncomfortable chair beside his bed. My world shrunk to the size of this sterile room. I hadn't left, not for more than a quick trip to the cafeteria or the restroom. I'd been sleeping in this chair, my neck permanently kinked, my back aching in protest. But none of that mattered. All that mattered was being here when he woke up, even for a few groggy moments. All that mattered was holding his hand and whispering that Dad was right here, that he was going to be okay. My phone buzzed on the small bedside table, rattling against the plastic water pitcher. It had been buzzing intermittently all day. I knew what it was. It was my sister, and my mom, and my brother-in-law. Today was my nephew's 5th birthday party. A big one. The kind with a bouncy castle, a magician, and a mountain of presents. A party I was supposed to be at. A party I was now missing. I glanced at the screen. A new text message from my sister, Sarah. "Where are you? The magician is starting in 15 minutes. Everyone is asking for you. I sighed, rubbing my tired eyes. I'd already explained the situation. I'd sent pictures of I'd described the doctor's cautious but hopeful prognosis, but it seemed the reality of my son's situation hadn't fully registered. Or maybe it was just inconvenient for their party plans. I typed a quick reply. Still at the hospital. Leo's not stable enough for me to leave. Tell Ben I'm so sorry and I love him. I hit send, a wave of guilt washing over me. I hated missing my nephew's birthday. I loved that little guy, but how could I be anywhere else? How could they even ask? A few minutes later, my phone rang it. It was my mother. I hesitated before answering, bracing myself. Hello! Mom! Michael, what is this? Sarah said you're not coming. You promised Ben you'd be here. He's been asking for his Uncle Mike all day. Her voice was tight with disapproval. Mom, I can't, Leo. He's in the hospital. We're in the trauma unit. I told you this. I know, dear. And it's terrible. Just terrible. But the doctors are there, aren't they? He's sleeping. What good are you doing just sitting there? Life has to go on. Your nephew is only 5 once. This family is supposed to support each other. Her words hit me like a physical blow. Support each other. I kept my voice low, conscious of my sleeping son. Mom, my son is hurt. Badly. This is where I need to be. This is supporting my family. My son is my family. Don't use that tone with me, she snapped. We're all worried about Leo. But you're letting everyone down. Your father would be so disappointed in you for abandoning your commitments. The mention of my dad, who passed away a few years ago, was a low blow. He was the one who taught me that family comes first. But my definition of that principle was clearly different from my mother's. For her, family meant showing up, keeping up appearances, and participating in the scheduled events that held the extended clan together. For me, right now, family was this small, fragile boy in the hospital bed. He was my priority. He was my only commitment. I'm sorry you feel that way, Mom. I have to go. I ended the call before she could reply, my hand trembling slightly. I stared at my son, a fresh wave of love and protectiveness surging through me. How could they not understand? Was a birthday party, even an important one, really on the same level as a medical crisis? The pressure didn't stop. Throughout the afternoon, I received more texts. A picture of my nephew blowing out his candles, with a caption, "Someone's missing." A message from my brother-in-law. Seriously, man, you couldn't spare 1 hour. Not cool. Each message felt like a little paper cut, stinging and unnecessary. They were painting me as the villain, the selfish brother, the uncaring uncle who broke a little boy's heart. They were judging my choices from the comfort of a backyard party, completely removed from the stark, antiseptic reality I was living in. I wanted to scream. I wanted to send them a picture of my son's pale face, of the foredrip in his small hand, and ask them if a bouncy castle was more important than this. But I didn't. What was the point? They had already made up their minds. In their story, I was the one who was wrong. That evening, as the hospital quieted down and the fluorescent lights hummed overhead, a nurse came in to check on Leo. She was kind, with warm eyes that had seen more than their share of suffering. "How are you holding up, Dad?" she asked softly. The simple question, filled with genuine concern, broke something open inside me. The frustration and anger and guilt I'd been bottling up all day came pouring out. I told her about the accident, about the past 3 days, and about the constant, relentless pressure from my family to be somewhere else. "They think I'm just sitting here," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "They don't get that just. Being here is everything. It's the only thing I can do." She nodded, her expression full of empathy. "They're not the ones sitting in this chair," she said. "They're not the ones who have to see him like this. You're his dad. You're right where you need to be. You're his safe place. When he wakes up, your face is the first thing he'll want to see. That's more powerful than any medicine we can give him." Her words were a lifeline. She was a stranger, yet she understood more than my own family. She saw the silent, vital role I was playing. I wasn't just sitting here. I was standing guard. I was a sentinel, a protector, a constant presence in the face of fear and uncertainty. Just then, Leo stirred. His eyelids fluttered open. He looked around the room, confused and scared, his eyes wide. Then they found me. "Dad," he whispered, his voice hoarse. I was by his side in an instant, my hand on his forehead. "Hey, buddy, I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." A small, weak smile touched his lips. He reached out and his fingers curled around mine. "I was scared," he mumbled, his eyes already drifting closed again. "I know, but you're safe now. I've got you." I held his hand tightly, the warmth of his small fingers, a powerful anchor. In that moment, all the noise from the outside world, the texts, the calls, the judgment faded into nothing. It was all meaningless static. The only thing that was real was the weight of my son's hand in mine. This was the true meaning of family. It wasn't about obligatory appearances or perfectly curated celebrations. It was about showing up when it was hard. It was about being present in the quiet, terrifying moments. It was about being the anchor in the storm, even if the rest of the world couldn't see the waves. My phone buzzed again. I didn't even look at it. I just silenced it and put it away. My nephew would have other birthdays, and I would make it up to him. I swore I would. I would explain it to him when he was old enough to understand, but my son only had one dad, and he needed me right here, right now. The party could wait. True loyalty isn't measured by attendance, but by presence in times of need. And as I sat there, holding my son's hand while he slept, I knew, with absolute certainty, that I had made the right choice. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever been in a situation where you had to make a tough choice for your family, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about what truly matters in life. See you next time. For a brief, unsettling moment, guilt tried to find a foothold in my mind. It slipped in quietly, disguised as obligation. Years of subtle pressure had trained me to consider everyone's feelings, to smooth over tension, to keep the peace even when it cost me comfort. I had been conditioned to believe that harmony required sacrifice, that disappointing someone, especially family, meant I had failed in some way. So even sitting in that hospital hallway, with my son behind trauma doors, a small voice whispered, "Could you have handled that differently? Could you have softened it? Could you still make it work somehow?" It's astonishing how deeply those patterns run. Crisis doesn't automatically erase them. Even as machines monitored my child's heartbeat, part of my brain was still navigating the familiar maze of expectation and consequence. I imagined the fallout, the cold shoulders, the retelling of the story in ways that would paint us as inconsiderate. I could almost hear the phrases. It was just one evening. Family should come first. We had everything planned. But then I looked through the narrow window into the trauma room. My son lay there, small against the white sheets, surrounded by equipment that hummed and blinked with clinical indifference. His face was pale, his body unnaturally still except for the rise and fall of assisted breaths. There was a vulnerability in that image that cut through every other thought. He didn't need diplomacy. He didn't need appearances maintained. He needed his parent, fully present, unapologetically present. That was the moment something shifted. The guilt that had begun to creep in met something stronger. Clarity, a fierce, steady clarity that felt almost physical, like a spine straightening. I realized that I had been weighing two things that were not equal. On one side was a social event, complete with expectations and pride. On the other side was my child's life. The fact that I had even allowed them to occupy the same mental space, even briefly, revealed how powerful long-standing dynamics can be. I stood up from the chair and walked back toward the nurse's station, asking for an update. My voice was steadier than I felt, but there was no hesitation anymore. Whatever tension awaited outside those hospital walls could wait. Whatever disappointment simmered elsewhere would have to simmer without me. My place was here. Choosing him wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. There was no announcement. No confrontation beyond the simple words already spoken on the phone. It was an internal decision, quiet but absolute. A line drawn not in anger, but in instinct. I would not divide myself in this moment. I would not dilute my presence with guilt or second-guessing. He deserved all of me. When I returned to the waiting area, I silenced my phone completely and placed it face down in my bag. The symbolic weight of that small action wasn't lost on me. I was shutting out the noise. Not forever, perhaps, but for now. The outside world would have to continue without my participation. The dinner would proceed. Candles would be blown out. Conversations would fill the air, and I would remain here, counting breaths and listening for updates. There is a particular kind of strength that emerges when priorities crystallize. It's not aggressive or defiant. It's calm, rooted. I felt it settle into me as the hours passed. Every time a nurse walked by, I was ready. Every time a doctor approached, I stood. My focus narrowed to the essential. His condition, his comfort, his chances. The rest faded into background static. I thought about how often parents are asked to stretch themselves thin, to meet expectations, to show up, to perform roles that keep the extended family ecosystem stable. So often, we bend to avoid conflict. We attend the dinner even when we're exhausted. We smile through tension. We prioritize keeping others satisfied. But this was different. This was not a scheduling inconvenience. This was not a minor illness. This was trauma, and trauma clarifies. Sitting beside his bed later, when I was finally allowed in for a few minutes, I reached for his hand carefully, mindful of the wires. His fingers felt warm but slack in mine. I leaned close and told him I was there. I didn't know if he could hear me, but I needed him to know. My presence wasn't fragmented. It wasn't shared with resentment or obligation elsewhere. It was whole. In that quiet space, the idea of apologizing for missing a dinner felt almost surreal. The earlier words, the ultimatum, the threat of estrangement, seemed smaller against the gravity of what was unfolding here. Not insignificant emotionally, but misplaced. Deeply misplaced. Choosing my child did not feel like rebellion. It felt like alignment, like stepping into the most fundamental role I have. Protector, advocate, constant. If there would be consequences for that choice, so be it. If relationships shifted because I refused to abandon a hospital bedside for a celebration, then perhaps those relationships were more fragile than I had allowed myself to admit. The monitors continued their steady rhythm, each beep a reminder that he was still fighting. I sat there, anchored by that sound, knowing with absolute certainty that there was nowhere else I was meant to be. In the days that followed, which stayed with me almost as much as the hospital's fluorescent glow, was the silence, not the quiet of the trauma unit, where machines hummed and nurses moved softly between rooms, but a different kind of silence, deliberate, pointed, heavy. There were no messages asking for updates, no calls checking on his condition, no simple, human question like, "How is he doing today?" The absence of those words echoed louder than any argument could have. At first, I told myself they were waiting. Maybe they assumed we were overwhelmed. Maybe they didn't want to intrude. I tried to extend grace, to imagine reasonable explanations. But as hours turned into days, the truth became harder to soften. There were social media posts from the birthday dinner, smiling faces, cake, captions about family and gratitude. Life had moved forward seamlessly in that world. In ours, time still revolved around vital signs, test results, and cautious optimism. It is a strange thing to realize that someone can be more committed to being offended than to being compassionate. I kept thinking about that phone call, about the ultimatum delivered without hesitation, dead to us. The words had been dramatic, almost theatrical, but now, in the stillness that followed, they felt less like a burst of anger and more like a position, a choice. And it wasn't just about one missed dinner. It was about control, about expectations, about who gets to define what loyalty looks like. Crises has a way of peeling back layers. It removes the polite filters and the surface-level courtesies that often mask deeper dynamics. When everything is stable, it's easy to overlook small red flags. The subtle guilt trips, the way disappointment is weaponized, the constant measuring of who shows up and who doesn't. But when something truly serious happens, the stakes shift. You see clearly who leans in with support and who leans back with conditions. Sitting beside my son's hospital bed during recovery, I had a lot of time to think. The rhythm of the monitors became a backdrop to reflection. I thought about every family gathering where tension simmered beneath forced smiles. Every time I rearranged plans to avoid upsetting someone. Every moment I swallowed frustration to keep peace. I had always believed that maintaining harmony was worth the effort, that compromise was a sign of maturity, that enduring small slights was part of being part of a larger family. But these wasn't tea. A small slight. This was silence in the face of crises. The longer it stretched, the more it clarified something I Adante wanted to confront before. Empathy shouldn't be conditional. Concern shouldn't depend on compliance. Love shouldn't hinge on attendance. And yet, the pattern was unmistakable. Support seemed available only when expectations were met. Approval flowed when roles were performed correctly. Step out of line, even for something as undeniable as a medical emergency. And warmth turned to frost. There were moments when anger flared. I imagined what I would say if confronted again. I rehearsed explanations I no longer owed, but beneath the anger was something steadier. Awakening. Not dramatic, not explosive, but steady. I began to understand that boundaries are often born in crisis. When something forces you to choose, and you choose with clarity, you can't unsee what that reveals. Friends, neighbors, even acquaintances reached out with more compassion than some family members had shown. Texts that said, "Thinking of you." Meals dropped off quietly at the door. Offers to sit with me so I could shower or rest. None of them demanded anything in return. None of them kept score. They simply showed up in ways that mattered. The contrast was undeniable as my son slowly improved. As tubes were removed and conversations shifted from critical to stable, I felt gratitude layered with something else. A new understanding of what family truly means. It's not defined by titles or shared holidays alone. It's defined by presence in the moments that matter most, by who stands beside you when the outcome is uncertain, by who asks about the hard things, not just the celebratory ones. The silence from them eventually broke, but not in the way I once might have hoped. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of how their words had landed in the middle of a trauma ward. Instead, there was a careful glossing over, a return to surface normalcy, as if the ultimatum had evaporated with time, as if the absence of support could be edited out of the story. But I couldn't unhear it. I couldn't unfeel it. Something fundamental had shifted inside me. Not a desire for confrontation, but a refusal to keep shrinking myself to maintain someone else's comfort. I had chosen my child without hesitation. I would do it again, and if that choice disrupted expectations, so be it. The crisis had exposed more than vulnerability in a hospital room. It had exposed priorities, values, and the fragile scaffolding of relationships built on obligation rather than understanding. Sometimes it takes the worst day of your life to show you where you truly stand in someone else's. What that night taught me is something I will carry for the rest of my life. A crisis doesn't just test your strength, it reveals everyone else's character. When everything is calm, it's easy to confuse tradition with love, obligation with loyalty, or attendance with devotion. But when your child is lying in a hospital bed, surrounded by machines, fighting just to breathe, all that noise falls away. You see everything clearly. You see who calls to ask how your child is doing, and who calls to ask where you are. You see who offers comfort, and who offers ultimatums. You see who understands that family is about presence in pain, not just presence at a party. That night, I didn't lose family. I lost the illusion of what I thought family was supposed to look like, and I gained something so much more powerful. The certainty that choosing my child will never, ever require an apology. Because when everything else is stripped away, when expectations and pride and social calendars fade into the background, one truth remains. A parent's place is beside their child, not at a dinner table, not defending a decision, not negotiating love, just beside their child. If this story resonated with you, if you believe that protecting your peace and your children sometimes means disappointing others, then you are not alone. Subscribe and join this community. Here, we tell the stories people are often afraid to say out loud, and where choosing what truly matters is never something you have to apologize for.